Well, many of the NATO leaders then went on to Brussels, where the heads of the EU's 27 member nations are holding a summit today. They're meant to be focusing on ways to prevent more painful tariffs from the U.S., as well as tougher sanctions on Russia, and how best to make their voices heard in conflicts in the Middle East. Our Europe editor, Armen Georgian, is in Brussels. He joins me now live from there. Armen, officially, European countries are on the same page about defense spending. I was mentioning that a moment ago. In practice, are they really?
Well, officially, they're very pleased about NATO agreeing on this new target, the 5% of spending of GDP on defense by 2035. That's, of course, because, as you hinted at, Jeannie, most EU members are members of NATO as well, 23 out of 27. So they're certainly pleased that this has been agreed, but they're very mindful of the difficulties in actually paying for this splurge in defense. Many European governments are struggling with very big debts. France's public debt, for example, is 3.4 trillion euros. So that's very much weighing on decisions in national capitals. Just yesterday, the German Minister of Europe that I spoke to said, we don't want new instruments because we think we have existing instruments that are fine, and we can't keep on passing debts down to younger generations. And that sort of language was echoed today actually by the Dutch caretaker Prime Minister Dirk Schoof, who was saying that there is no free money. So very much that same kind of mindset. Schoof saying that the Netherlands will not be using the loans for weapons scheme that the European Commission has come up with, and also that they will not be using the escape clause. This is another idea that the European Commission has presented in the last few months, which basically allows countries to escape the current fiscal rules if they want to spend more money on defense. Not all EU countries want to do that. Not all of them feel that they can because of their public debt. So they're very mindful that they want to have investment in defense. They're mindful that they want to help Ukraine going forward. President Zelensky is at this summit as well. There's a working session with him over lunchtime here in Brussels. But how to actually spend this money, how to find the money in a responsible way, that's still a tricky thing for many EU member states.
And Armen, what about what we've been seeing in just the recent week in regard to the EU? I mean, this Middle East crisis that we've been living through has really highlighted divisions within the EU, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And some EU member states are definitely putting the pressure up on their colleagues to take stronger action on Israel. You may know that recently there was a review conducted of the EU-Israel Association Agreement, which found indications that Israel is violating its human rights obligations under that EU-Israel agreement. But some EU member states here are saying the time for words is over. There has to be stronger actions. The Irish government, for example, saying it's incomprehensible to voters that the EU is not actually taking action, that it's still talking about this. The Slovenian Prime Minister saying we can't talk about the rule of law in general in the EU with such an inadequate response to the situation in Gaza. That echoed by Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who's been talking about double standards. In other words, the EU agreeing on the idea of an 18th package of sanctions on Russia, but not planning sanctions on Israel. So you do have a sort of build-up from those countries that want action when it comes to Israel and Gaza. But as always, it's very hard to find a consensus among 27 member states. We've seen these divisions really for a good 18 months now, Jeannie, ever since the October 7th attack on Israel. And it's pretty unlikely that those differences could be overcome in a setting like this today.
Armen, thanks for that. That's France 24's Europe editor, Armen Georgian.